All right. Okay. Welcome to Cerebral Hangout. I haven't done too much planning, but we have a few points to go through. And the first one, let me see here. The first one is, preparing for 1.0 release. So we're heading to Vienna, well, some of us, in July. It's going to be awesome. And it's a really good feeling that Cerebral works. Like, it's been used on many different projects now, and I think we should just be really happy and proud of ourselves to have reached this point in the API and the functionality. Like, there will always be new ideas and ways we can change it, but now this works. It actually does work. So what we basically need for 1.0 release is, let me share my screen here. There, screen, entire screen, share. Oh, you can see it? You see it, guys?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good. So there's a milestone called pre 1.0. It's actually Alexi who has been managing this, because he's like more of a planner than I am. But most, and this is not like hard requirements for the 1.0 release. Like, there is some testing stuff that might be a bit hard to accomplish by July. But of course, we have to fix like optimization stuff. There are some errors we want to throw in different scenarios to make it more user-friendly. And then there are a couple of bugs we actually have to fix. So we also have this one issue that has some checkboxes here. And it's mostly about optimizations, really. And of course, the documentation. Like, I've been doing Cerebral for too long now. So for me to write documentation is a bit hard to do. But I hope that at least that weekend in July, we can wrap up the final stuff, and we can have like an official celebration of 1.0, and yeah. And there will also be more reference apps, and we have to change the web page so that it is more like, you don't even have installation instructions on the first page, which all frameworks have. It's kind of ridiculous. But there's a lot of information there. I think we just have to structure it a bit differently. And I think I got a bit ambitious with all the videos. So documentation first, and then videos can be an addition. You know, love to make those videos. I don't know if you have any questions related to 1.0 or the event or whatever, really.
I guess I was just wondering how stable, we went through a crazy time of lots of experimentation. I want to get your thoughts on like how you see the project evolving. Like, you don't want to just keep doing the same thing and not adapt, but like maybe it won't be as crazy as it was before. Maybe just talk about that a little bit.
You mean until the 1.0 release or after? After, yeah. Yeah, I think we have learned a lot, and there are new things happening all the time. Like, we've been discussing observables a bit, and I think we have to make some fundamental decisions after 1.0 on should we, like, signals now is its own thing, and should it be its own thing, or should we depend on some more native kind of technology, for example, observables, which is supposed to be in JavaScript in ES7, I think. Or should we just stick to signals and not try to make that something else, but make it the best it can be. And then look at the API for that, if we can make some changes. Like Delaney was talking a lot about behavior tree functionality. I don't know if that can be adapted to like the world of web applications, if it's even necessary. But there are definitely things we can do with these signals to make them more expressive and have more functionality.
It's interesting because like in the Redux ecosystem, what it seems like they're trying to solve is like all the side effect async stuff.
Yeah.
And in their architecture, all that stuff is like in action creator land and like their middleware system.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like there's a ton changing there too, and they're jumping from like trying one pattern to another pattern to another, but it all seems to sort of be happening, isolated, kind of outside of the main thing. Like they have kind of these low-level APIs, and pretty much since 1.0 they've been the same, and all the experimentation happens in this little async part.
Yeah. With Redux Saga and
like Saga's on. So it's interesting, like that the way they set it up, it seems to be working for them. That the overall thing is stable, and you can just anyone can jump in with their middleware thing and try different stuff.
Yeah, that's also a really good point. Like, what should Cerebral be? Should it be low level and pluggable, or should it be like something you can use instantly and just build something? I think, well, Redux is really low level. It's like just installing Redux, you have no idea how to do asynchronous stuff. Like that's basic. You need that.
Like I think in their documentation, like async is like in like the real world section or like advanced section, like 10 chapters in or something like that, where it's like that's not advanced in if you're a web developer, right? That's like one of the first things that's on your mind.
Yeah, and I've been moving like back and forth on the idea of picking your own tools or having a framework. And I don't know.
I think Cerebral does actually a pretty good job of being kind of in the middle there, right? It's not Ember and it's not Redux, but it is still pluggable, like at the view layer, and like I'll show later, is like it can be embedded in other architectures as well and used. So I actually think it's a pretty good balance.
Yeah, I think so too. It's like if Redux had asynchronous, like a way to handle that asynchronous behavior, then it would actually be more like Cerebral, because that's basically what Cerebral is. It's just handling that asynchronous stuff.
Yeah, it's just having an opinion on that.
Yeah,
on that piece.
Exactly.
And also kind of like not making the distinction between action, like the event of something changing, and the stuff that produces the state change. It's kind of in the same place in Cerebral, right? Which is different than plain Flux.
And then you also have like Elm, where you have your side effects after a state change, which is kind of weird, or it's a different mindset at least, which means personally it's weird, but it's readability. Like I really like the fact that you can just start at the top and you can just read each line and you understand what each line does. Like in Elm world, you have to do a state change, and that state change returns a side effect, which is defined somewhere else, which triggers a new action, which might return a new side effect, and it's kind of hard. It's harder to compose that in your head. So, but there are, like, the cool thing about Elm is that everything's pure and immutable and all that stuff, and maybe that's the way it has to work in that world. But I just don't like it. I like it when I can just, something happens and I can just read through what happens. And that is basically how Redux does it too inside the action creator. When there is asynchronicity, you can dispatch multiple times. It's just a bit harder to read it. And yeah,
Yeah, because like instead of it's like Cerebral without the signal,
yeah,
without the signal view, right? Like
yeah,
you can jump from action to action if you're triggering other asynchronous behaviors that emit events, but then you're jumping between these files, right? And you're pretty much composing the signal
mhm,
tree in your head.
yeah,
So I think
and
it's good. Yeah, I mean, it's good that Cerebral has an opinion about that and has a solution for it. But on the flip side is, you know, we can't really change stuff as radically, probably, or as isolated because we have an opinion about it.
yeah. But everything's like, it's not like Cerebral wasn't well planned. It just happens, you know. We have an idea, and sometimes that idea leads to something good, and sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time, it doesn't. But I think like after 1.0, everything's open. It can be completely different because so much stuff has happened, and we know what we don't like right now, which can be improved, and but we're trying to do the same thing still. So we just have to take what works and what doesn't work and learn from other things, and try to come up with something that's even more awesome,
Cool.
I think.
Yeah, so it's more just like at 1.0 that version is locked and
Yeah,
it's well, it's good to go and you could stay there and be productive and get help if you need it.
yeah.
But
And
if
we
you
could,
want the latest and greatest, you could keep hopping versions and stuff.
yeah, because I think it's not like what is Cerebral. Cerebral will be 1.0, and we will of course fix bugs and stuff like that. But the next thing might be very, very different. Maybe we don't even call it Cerebral because we want that to be its own thing. Because things change and we get new technology, and we shouldn't just like wrap ourselves in the Cerebral bubble and think how can we make this even better when there's something that makes completely more sense, just because things move on. And yeah, so but it will be really fun to start discussing all this stuff. We have been through some discussions before. And by the way, one thing about 1.0, it will also get this context thingy we landed on.
Yeah, that
Which
was my
is,
next question.
yeah, and that's really low level. So that's our pluggable spot, I think. That's kind of like our middleware, I think, that context thingy. So that'll be really good. Let's see. I had some more stuff on my list here. Let's see. Where is my list? There it is. Yeah, Falcor. Yeah. So
What a treat getting that out the door, huh?
yeah. Oh, but it's like Delaney has done a really, really awesome job there, and you went in after. Oops. Where is it? There it is. And yeah. So, but he had like a Falcor backend to work on, and it's really hard to create that module without a backend. So it's really too bad that the project has stopped, like Delaney's own project, which basically stopped the development on Falcor. But I think we have gotten to a place where we can at least call it like beta or something. So we can encourage people to start using it and continue working on it. And if there are any bugs and stuff like that,
I mean, people would be in a much better place to pick up with this
yeah,
and start here than where we started from, which was nothing. So
yeah, exactly. So I think I'm just going to release it and put it on the website and just smack a beta label on it, and then just document the basic things. But I thought I could give a demo. It's not very exciting. It's like a list, and I can type something, and it adds to the list. So, but it's Falcor. But maybe we could check out the the code for it. So let's see. Let me close down some things. I think app.js. Is it plus? Yeah. So the point of this Falcor module is that it was decided to expose it as a decorator. And what you can do is first attach the Cerebral decorator, and then you attach the Falcor decorator after it. And much like the Cerebral decorator, where you define what state you want from your state store, you can use the Falcor decorator to list queries. So they kind of like those queries tells you what you want from the backend. And that's actually all you have to do, and that's the really cool part. The really cool part there is that you just define the query and it works. I don't quite remember how you actually grab those values. Do you remember, Brian? Falcor, to-dos, title. Yeah, you have this. Yeah, of course. You have the Falcor property, which is exposed. And I think this needs to change a little bit to make it a bit more friendly. But basically, it's like a getter for the data you get from Falcor. And then you grab your data. So in this case, we grab the to-dos. But what's kind of really awesome about this is if, for example, we had some client-side state here. For example, we had the current page. Like we had a table and we were on page 1, for example. Like that. So what we could do here is basically use a function instead. And then we could return the query. And we would get props in here. And so it's kind of like we define some props up here with the Cerebral decorator, and those are passed into the Falcor decorator, which means that we could actually change this around. So we could say props.current page props.current page plus 10. Like that. And if you were to trigger a signal which changed the current page in the client, that will run the Falcor decorator again, talking to the server and grabbing the correct number of to-dos and update the component. And this is insanely awesome. I've never seen anyone actually mix client-side state and like Falcor, GraphQL kind of stuff in this way. And yeah, so that's really, really cool that it's possible to do that stuff. But I don't think we have much documentation. No, this is like the default documentation from.
It also does smart stuff with matching up your queries.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have multiple components that are defining their own, like say this component just wants the title, but a child component wants to display, I don't know, something else about it. Some other attribute on the to-do. What the Falcor module will do is kind of batch those into one query and make one request to the server to get the title and like maybe like the comments if another component wanted to display the comments.
Yeah, and actually
Awesome.
we can actually take a look here at, yeah. So here we can, and this is also so cool. Like this is a module. It has signals, and you can see what it does. So yeah, as Brian said, it batches up the queries, and it creates one query there.
Unfortunately, this is a terrible demo for that because it doesn't display any of that cool stuff.
Yeah.
It's making one query for one attribute. But
Yeah.
you could imagine.
So as you can see, it gets its own namespace here, and you have access to all the data that is produced. So you kind of like, with Falcor, you put a lot of stuff in memory. Like Falcor has its own cache thingy, but we need to put this into whatever model that is chosen for Cerebral. So you do have, like, it's abstracted away from you, but there is some like extra data there that you do not need. But Falcor is just built this way. It has its internal cache, and that's just how it works. But you have access to looking at everything that's happening inside Falcor as you develop your application. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, but I think that's all for Falcor. I don't know if you have anything more you want to share on. Oh, did I do screen sharing on this demo? I didn't? You have to see, I'm just talking. Oh, that's too bad. Okay, let's look at okay, this is the code for the component. So maybe it makes a bit more sense what I did now. So the initial component looked like this, like this. So you have
Christian, don't worry, we solved the screen sharing.
Oh, you did? Okay, good. Oh, that's good. Let me stop it again. Yes, okay, back. I don't know if you had anything more to share, Brian, on... Is he gone? Oh. Okay, but then we'll just move on. See here. Ember stuff, yeah, that was Brian, but he's gone. Okay, let's... Atom, maybe we can look at the Atom plugin thingy.
Yeah, I can show it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Let's see. Screen share. All right. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So, I don't know if you saw it. I posted it a while ago in general, a demo of it. But basically, you kind of want some developer experience when making signals, in my opinion, because you write these signals really easy, and you want to generate all those different files in a more friendly way, because I lose a lot of time just making files, and it's just stupid, I guess. But so let's see what it does. If I can find my atom. Right. Oh. Okay, there we go. Right, so I've got a very sample module here, which doesn't contain anything at the moment. And so let's make some signals. I'm going to do it this way. You can do it any way you want. I'll show you that it works doing it this way as well. But so I'll just demo it, and then it will become clear what it does. So for example, you have a signal gallery opened or something. Then I press my shortcut, and it instantly created the signal. Don't know if you noticed. Can you see the code?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so it generated that file and also the import, so you can see the file being here. And if I add another signal like image opened and hit the shortcut again, it will add that to your file, right? So if I now create some actions, I don't know what you do in image opened, but let's just like, I don't know. Set ID, load image, whatever. I really don't know. Fetch image maybe. Fetch, well, this is bad. Fetch image, success, set image, I don't know. Error, log, error, I don't know. Right? And when I hit the shortcut again, you can see it generates all these different actions, and also generated the folder actions and all the files in there. And if you go and inspect those files, you can see that it just put some boilerplate in there and throws an exception that was a recommendation by someone, so that you do know that you still have to implement it, right? And if you look at the signal, we have one with outputs. So it also defines those outputs on that signal, on that action, sorry. Now it detects chains, and so let's see. There we go, show snack bar, something. That is a factory, so it knows, okay, that's a factory. And then it also generates that, and also puts the amount of arguments in there. Not really important, but it's helpful. And then the same goes for a sample chain. It also makes a chain. And by default, but you can configure this, it will sort your imports by type. But you could also put it by appearance, and you can do a lot of these things. And then finally, if you use a method or an action from or a factory in this case, from the add-ons, it will also know that, and it will import it from the add-ons. Right? So if you go to settings, you can see all the add-ons. It loads by default. You can add to this array. And perhaps later we can add a way so you have more than just Cerebral add-ons or something. I don't know. So I went to your WebpackBin code, and I went to search one of the most complex signals. I don't know if it's this one, but it contains a lot of different things. So if we generate that, I already have it in here. It will do that. You can see it sorting everything nicely, putting it alphabetically, and then you can also see all those different files with the outputs and everything. So yeah, that is some magic, I guess. And then finally, this also works. So if I comment this out, it also works here. So by using that chain and also the normal things, right? So that's pretty much all about it, I guess. I use it all the time. I even use it just to sort my imports at this time. So yeah.
That's just so awesome. It's really, really awesome. It just works now, so I can install. I haven't tried it even.
Yeah, you can just install it by this name. It has 81 installs. I have no idea who installs this, but perhaps some people who don't even know Cerebral and just want to, oh, this sounds interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that's really, really, really cool. It's
if you want to know how it works, it uses Babylon in the background, which is the parser by Babel. It will detect your imports and analyze the entire signal in a different ways. The code is not the most beautiful, but you can check it out here. And basically, I made it decoupled from the atom thing, so you can just use this parse function with your source text, and it will output something like, if I open up the where did it go? There we go. Right. So it will output these this here. It's got new imports. These imports need to be made. And then you also have the parse results, which contains all the existing imports, the new parts, which, well, you have the parts. So these are all the different things. So you have type, action, or whatever. And then the new parts are the ones who are not yet in the imports, and then you can use that. But yeah, can definitely make it more beautiful, but it definitely works right now.
Yeah, that's the important part. It's
Okay.
yeah.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
What is beautiful sidebar with tree on GitHub you have?
Sorry? Oh, that is Octo3. Octo3.
Is that a
An
Chrome
extension on your
extension?
Chrome. Yes.
Ah,
And it's pretty cool because it loads your entire tree. Well, you can choose how you configure it, but when you click a file, it's not going to load the entire page. It's just going to replace the content with the actual file. So it's really fast.
huh.
I think you must share it in kittens and stuff.
Right.
Kittens and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was a really cool demo. It's
Okay.
yeah, it's really great, and it actually fits really well with. I thought I could have a small. I had a really good experience here. I'm working with a startup, and they decided to use Cerebral. So we're building this actually this social site for. Well, it's about CO2, the environment and stuff. So it's a place where people come together and socialize around saving the planet. It's actually really cool, and it's even more cool now that it's using Cerebral. And let me just, yeah. Before I go into it, did anyone have any more questions on that plugin?
I just want to say awesome work. That is so cool. Like really incredible.
Yeah, it is.
I'm gonna use it.
Me too.
Well, if you find bugs, let me know. I'm probably not covering all the edge cases yet, but I've been using it the last 3 weeks now, and I haven't discovered a lot of bugs so far. So, all right.
Cool. Also for the 1.0 release of Cerebral, we will bring the add-ons into Cerebral itself.
Okay.
So instead of like Cerebral-add-ons, it will just be Cerebral/signals or something.
Okay.
But yeah, so we should sync that up so we don't break anything.
Oh,
Actually had one last thing to share.
Yeah.
I want to make the plugin configurable so you have your own templates per project, and that way you can kind of enforce the way you write your actions, your factories, whatever, in your company, and that way, yeah, you kind of can't make mistakes anymore, code format wise. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's
Okay.
kind of like snippets.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it.
I don't think you're. Oh, wait. I think.
Is it still sharing?
Yeah, though for some reason I'm. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I see it now.
Okay. So yeah, it just replaces these kind of keywords with whatever you do. So you could have these templates here. We could make these like files you can configure or whatever in your Atom plugin config, and then it will enforce those rules a bit better. I don't know.
Cool.
Okay.
It's just really awesome. Really awesome. So maybe I can jump to, let me share my screen again here. Because where did I go? There? You see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, as I said, I'm working with this startup, and what we're doing there, and actually I'm consulting for a different company as well. We're not using Cerebral there, but what we do is that we create two completely different projects. One project is for components, so they are completely stateless, has nothing to do with Cerebral, and we use CSS modules to create a design for each component. So each component is completely isolated and stateless. And then we have the actual application where we put all these components together, compose them together, and create app-specific components, and we give them state. And that's a really good way to, like, at least if you build an application that is going to live for a while and is quite large, then I would definitely recommend this way of splitting up your project. So if you have a really great designer, you can just design all the components, and then you just think of them as completely stateless, simple components and put them in one project. And then you move over to the application project when you're actually going to implement everything with like business logic, and in the case of Cerebral, with signals and all that stuff. So what we do when we have our components in the components project, we look at a mock of how a certain page should look like, and then we do pair programming on this, and we just discuss this page, and we identify all the state we need to produce that page. And then we go into the code, and we just write all the state we need for that module or that page. And then we discuss, okay, what kind of interaction should be on this page, or on this page. And then we actually go in and we mock all the signals. And that was kind of fun looking at your demo, because that is basically what we have been doing, like going in and kind of like mocking the signal. But after we have been mocking it, we have to create all the files, and we have to import all the files. But basically with your plugin, we could just, after doing the mocking, we could just save it, and then it will just have all the good stuff. But then everybody has like a really good sense of what we're trying to do. And then we start dividing work, like who should work on what part of the page, and maybe someone creates some actions and stuff. And then we kind of like just connect everything together. And I just wanted to share that workflow because it's really interesting, and I can definitely recommend it if it's possible to do on any projects you're working on. So yeah, just a small presentation from me. How do you guys work?
How do you do the mocks? When you say mock?
Sorry, Brian. What did you say?
Oh, it's how do you do the mocks that you're talking about?
Oh, the mocks?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the first mock I was talking about is from the designer. It's just a picture of how things should look. And the designer we are working with now, he's amazing. It's like some designers are just designing some stuff and doesn't think about all the details that goes into colors and padding and margin and interaction and different state and all that. But this guy knows all of this, and he just writes up everything for us. Yeah. So, but I don't know, what's your experience like? How do you attack an implementation with Cerebral? Do you start with a design, or do you just go with it? Like. Don't know.
Yeah, I think I just do it.
Have you ever worked on a project where you divide, like we often do this with open source projects, we split them up into different projects. Have you ever done that with a business project? Or is it always like one big monster?
Yeah, like at some points where you have a bunch of people working in one code base with like lots of new features, it's like whoever merges first wins. It's kind of like what it ends up descending into usually. So like our solution has actually been to like split up apps, like to not have huge apps to avoid that problem. Like you know, like just kind of like services on your back end, right? It's like you don't want one big app serving everything, like as much as possible, split stuff out. So it's been a while since we've had like one big app with like, you know, like 6 people or something all committing like JavaScript code at the same time with a bunch of new features. So hard to say, but that sounds like a really good approach. It's interesting. I never thought about that, like having someone write signals and having someone like implement the components separately.
Yeah. It's kind of strange that there's not that much documentation on different frameworks on how you actually work with the framework and how you structure your application. I think Angular had quite a bit on that, but looking at like the Flux world, there's a few projects that doesn't even show a file structure, or at least one best practice on file structure. And I think that's something we could investigate a bit more, like what's our experiences structuring our files and actually attacking different implementations? Like how do we split it up in multiple projects? Do we create the signals first? Do we pair program and all that? I think that's just as interesting as the API, actually.
That's actually something I hear from my coworkers who like Ember a lot, is that they like how Ember has there's one file structure for Ember CLI apps, and there's like one, you know, command that you run on the command line to generate all your files and you know, boot everything up. And I've always kind of pushed back and been like, you know, I don't know, that's kind of nice, but like my problems in development aren't generating files, like they're like understanding like how state changes over time.
Yeah.
But like I can see like the value of it. Like it's definitely like a nice thing to have, and you know, there's some wins to be had from standardizing on that.
Cool. Let's see. Did anyone else want to say something about that? No. Let's move on to, yeah. Did you want to show the file upload thing, Matthias?
Yeah, I can show it. It's very small, but I can, let me share. Let's see here. So can you see my screen?
Yep.
So it's a small demo here. Computer's running. Maybe you can hear my fan in the background. So actually, it's a pretty simple upload component with just one file, and you have that you must use PDF or MP4, and you cannot click the upload button. So if you choose one file that is JPEG, then it's the state here shows the error message as usual. And if you pick one file, a larger file here, and you upload it, it starts to upload in the background. Ooh. And yeah, and when it's done, it's done. So it's very simple. It's just one file.
Yeah. Though I think it looks really great. We discussed a lot back and forth on that. It's a really hard problem to scope. Like, should it be, what kind of implementation should it be? But like you showed there, it's I would be really happy with that. Like I can basically do anything, I suppose. So,
yeah, I think the approach is pretty simple, because it's a normal form, and you can do all the validation and what you like, and then it's pretty simple. So here is a simple server, Formidable, and this is the route, upload route, and it's saving it at the temp path right now. And in the module, it's a simple module. You have you just have the file, value is an array, but it's only one item in the array. And you have the validation here. And so in the main file, you can add validation. It's very powerful, so you can do whatever you want here. Yeah, let's see. So simple signals like file added, and file added actually borrows a lot from Cerebral module forms. So validate, touch field has value and everything. So it's just like files added here. I think that you can switch that as well, actually. And files added action is just like you put it in the store, the state store. And if you look at the form, you have the upload simple form and the file. And in the render, you just check some stuff like, should I render the error? Should I render the progress? Should I render the upload? And when the upload click here happens, you just attach it to a service, and you call the files, what URL, and then you have these callbacks on progress and on end. Cool. And so the upload service is simple. It's HTML, HTTP requests, and if you have the on end, it will call the on end. On progress, it will call the on progress. Yeah. And so simple signals here to just update the state. Yeah, so that is basically it.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. It's like the upload service there. It can be so useful for everyone, really. It's one of those, at least for me personally, it's one of those things I don't ever have a clear picture of how I'm going to implement. If you at least have that service there, which just gives you triggers some callbacks, that's really great. And then you can just hook it up with Cerebral and the form, and then you're set. And then there will probably be lots more scenarios for this, like multiple files and all that. But that will probably be additions to what's already there. So I think that's a really great start for file uploads.
Yeah, it's simple. Now the screen got like intense. I don't see anything. I hope it's not my screen. Can you take over the screen, maybe? Yeah. Good. Okay. So back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's awesome. That's really awesome. And it's really good that I don't know if we actually added the form to the modules. Yeah, okay, we have forms there. That's really good. Because that project is also at a state where people just have to use it, and then we just have to fix any bugs that's still there. I saw there was some small things, but yeah, it's closing in on being something stable that everybody can use. So that's really great. Cool. And then I have something, related to WebpackBin, because WebpackBin is a really great reference project for Cerebral, and it's actually become quite a success this far. There's still some work to do there, and I'm going to demo something we are going to do, because we have, like, I've been trying to run this startup, but I'm actually going to become a dad in September, October, so I have to prioritize a bit differently. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. A bit scary, but awesome. So I'm going to do more consulting. So I don't know if you have seen, because we open sourced our whole startup project as a reference for Cerebral to just show off that you can actually build a real application. And what we thought we would do is actually bring that functionality into WebpackBin. So I'm going to demo this now, because that wasn't part of the video introducing that project related to Cerebral. Because what we can actually do here is, where did I put it? There. Okay, I hope this works, because this is also using the camera and the microphone. But let's try it. You see my screen, right? Good.
Yes.
Okay, so we actually, as you can see, we took the design from our startup on WebpackBin. So this is not WebpackBin at all. This is a different project. But I want to show you how we can produce content. So the idea here is that I have my code editor, and this one just supports normal JavaScript and HTML and CSS, while WebpackBin allows you to bring in whatever tool you want, really. But the idea here is that as an author, or as any developer really, you can go into WebpackBin and you can create a bin, and you can just click this record button. And what happens, let's see, I just have to turn off the sound there. So what happens is that instantly it starts recording your webcam, and it uses Cerebral to record your interaction. So I can say hello world like this, and I can save it. And I'm not going to do this too long. And then I can stop it. And now I actually have a recording. So you can imagine this being like React or whatever. And it would work the exact same way. And you could add files, and you can do everything, really. And if I go to user mode here, I can replay this recording here. Let's see. And as you can see, it just replays the video with the audio. I don't think you can hear the audio though. And it uses Cerebral to replay the interaction. And as a user now, I can actually pause this playback at any time, and I can just change the code around. So it's a really awesome way to teach people about the different tools. And we are going to actually implement this now in WebpackBin over the summer with a GitHub login, so that actually any developer can just log in, create a bin, hit the record button, bring in some tools, and just start talking about it. And I think it's a really awesome way to learn new tools. So and we have some other plans after that as well. But I think that's going to be awesome, and it's going to be the most kick-ass reference for Cerebral. One thing is like the live stuff on WebpackBin now, which is also powered by Cerebral, where you share the interaction over WebSockets, which was like, it was implemented in 2 days. It's crazy how simple that was using Cerebral. But this actually recording stuff on your screen and just picking any NPM tool and just wing it, I think that's going to be really cool. So yeah. So I'm going to be working on that over the summer. We'll keep you posted on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think it's very cool as well to just, when you give a presentation in your company to different people about a new subject, you kind of want to record that for when new people join or when new people just get in that expertise. So yeah, I definitely see potential to just use that and record it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Awesome, awesome. Actually, this is what we had on the list for. If I hope I didn't forget anything. Did someone have more to share?
No, just a comment on that. It's really great because could you play like a whole iteration so that you can like replay it to your coworkers and they can interact like so that you can learn something from the previous project, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, like now the scope has been like we have been using this for kids actually. And we actually had a week where we did testing with kids, and it was really, really cool. And the way we did that was we had like 3-4 minutes of teaching something, like a concept in HTML or CSS. And then we actually had assignments. I didn't show that now, but that's not going to be part of WebpackBin, because assignments requires you to write a lot of code, and it's very hard to test if somebody understood the concept. Like there's so many ways to solve very simple things, and you have to test all of it to verify that the person did it correctly. But the initial implementation will be like you can record 3-4 minutes at a time, like a subject, and then the bin will have like scenes. So you can, for example, with React, the first scene is like looking at the syntax of creating a component. The next scene is about putting some state on the component, and then you kind of like go through it like that. But at any time when you play back the course, you can just put it on pause and you can change the code and play around with it yourself. And when you hit play again, it will just revert to the original recording. But yeah, it would be really great to hook this up to some streaming kind of service, like we're doing right here now. But yeah, that's not in the scope initially, at least. That's a bit more complicated.
Cool.
Christian, is it hard to run it on your own machine internally?
Like the project I showed you now?
No, WebpackBin and...
No, that it's actually the only... I think I updated the README. You have to... Yeah, there's one thing I forgot to add to the README, and that's... let's see. You basically just clone the project, and there we are, WebpackBin. You clone the project, and yeah, I did add that. Okay, so you just clone the project and install it, and then you have to go to your host file, and you have to add www.webpackbin.dev, and you have to run a MongoDB database in the background, and then you can just run it locally, or if your company wants to like use it privately, they can fire up a server internally and run the project there. And oh yeah, and then you have npm extractor, because I split it up into a different service, which also I hope maybe can be a thing later, because npm extractor is what actually, it just receives a list of packages, and then it talks to npm, packages them up, and gives you like the Webpack vendors bundle for those packages. And I was thinking about that because sometimes it takes a lot of time to fire up your project because you have so many dependencies. So what npm extractor could be is like you could upload your package.json file to this npm extractor, and what you would get back is a JavaScript file with these dependencies, and they would actually load separately from your project. So the only thing that runs through Webpack on your project is your project files. So it makes Webpack insanely fast. But yeah, that's not the first on my list, but that will be kind of cool, I think.
Cool, thanks.
Yep.
If you ignore node modules, do you get the same thing?
What did you mean?
Locally? Like it doesn't bundle? Or does it still have to bundle all of those? I guess it does.
No, yeah, and that's the cool thing. There's a thing in Webpack, and that is what makes WebpackBin possible. There's a plugin called DLL plugin. I don't know even what the DLL means, but
maybe dynamically linked library.
Yeah, maybe. So what it does is it's like creating an external package you can import stuff from. So your project understands that it has a reference to an external Webpack bundle, and it will know what require statements should go against that external bundle. So you kind of like configure your project bundle with a manifest. So in the case of npm extractor, you would upload your package JSON, and you would get a manifest and a JavaScript file back. And then you configure your project with the manifest and just load up separately that JavaScript file in your project, and they will start talking to each other. But it basically means that your project doesn't touch node modules at all. It doesn't need to. But of course, if you change some dependencies, you have to load up everything again. So I'm not sure how useful it is, but maybe. But that's how WebpackBin works in the background. That's why it's so fast loading up stuff. Cool. I was hoping we would round this off after an hour. Maybe it's good to finish it off now. It's kind of for the people looking at it later also, like sitting there for 2 hours listening to us talking about all crazy stuff.
Yeah, I'll save the Ember thing for the next one.
Oh, no, you have time?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, of course we have to show Ember.
Or is it getting too long? Or?
No, sorry. I was just thinking that we were finished, but no, I want to see Ember stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Okay, well, it won't take too long, I don't think. Let me share.
And I actually figured out there's a feature on this Hangout thing where I can click your images and then I lock the screen to your, because sometimes it jumps back and forth.
Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Cool. I'll make this a little bigger. So yeah, here we have the Mighty To Do app, and yeah, pretty much what I did was I started up a new Ember CLI application. So this is running Ember here. You type Ember serve, and it takes care of bundling all your assets. This is a bunch of linting that I completely ignore because I didn't configure it at all. So yeah, but just pretty much like, so Ember is still kind of not on the Flux bandwagon fully. The programming model for Ember is that you have models, routes, controllers, and components. And pretty much like the way you get state is you define some models that communicate with your API, and they can implement methods and behaviors, and then you load up those models or data from your server in your route, and those get passed to your controller where you can do stuff that's like specific for a certain set of components. And then you have your components, and then you can pretty much do two-way binding on properties. So like you mutate the state of your component or your controller, and then Ember has its own computed properties thing, which will update the data and re-render the template for you. So obviously I like the Flux thing, so I've been trying to figure out how to make that a little bit better in Emberland. And I saw someone embedded Redux in Ember, which gave me the idea to do Cerebral. So I just gave it a shot, and it actually turned out pretty well. So if you just start here, like here's a typical component. You have an Ember component here. And what's really cool is that there's this thing called HTML bars inline precompile, which HTML bars is Ember's templating language. And what this lets you do is like React style, where you include your markup or your template with the rest of your component code. Because normally in Ember, these would be separate files. So what you can do in this one Ember component now is you can set the setting happens in the background, but you can set properties on this component, and then those are made available here to your template. So if you see there's a to-do that's set on this component, and now I can use it in the template. And Ember has actions, which are just their event system. So you can see when you click this input, it calls the complete toggled action. And then here is where we kind of interface with Cerebral. So Ember has its dependency injection system. So they have initializers over here that get called when your app boots up. And this is where I include Cerebral. Now this is another thing, is this is using some special Ember Browsify thing to include NPM packages. Yep, so this is all normal Cerebral stuff. And I have a separate signals file here that I include. Where did I put that? Yeah, this just has all the signals. But what you do here, this is how you inject Cerebral. So you pass, where is it? Yeah, so you pass Cerebral to this thing, you register it as Cerebral main, and then what you can do is you can say inject this Cerebral thing into all the components and into the routes. And what I do here is I do the same thing for signals. I inject the signals object into all the components and into all the routes. So that lets me, in the component, it sets that property, so then I can just do get signals and then trigger that signal. And it's available in all the components. And same thing here. Where is it? I can get any state here. So here I can get the to-do. And what makes this possible, this kind of binding, is it's through this Cerebral mixin that I created. So if you see here, Ember component, it extends the Cerebral mixin. And this is kind of like init. There's an init method that you can define, and that's kind of like React's component will mount, I think. Is that the first lifecycle method that gets called?
Or constructor, depending.
Yeah,
on
or the constructor, exactly. And pretty much what this does is it calls this bind props method. And what bind props does is you define a Cerebral props method that says what you want the property on this component to be and where to find it in Cerebral. And then what this does is it loops through those props, and it says set on this component a property with that name with the value of an Ember computed property that it returns that value from Cerebral, and mark it as read-only so it doesn't get mutated.
Oh.
And then what this does is once you set that property on the component, this sets up the subscription. So you say subscribe to Cerebral props. So subscribe props to Cerebral updates, which what this does is it uses a Boabab kind of specific thing. So since this data is mutable in Ember, like you can't mark the Cerebral model to be immutable, because Ember, to do its computed properties, needs to mutate properties on the data. So in order to make this a little bit faster, is instead of using Cerebral's change event on the controller, we actually use Boabab cursors. And this just goes through and it creates a cursor callback. And then it says when any of these properties update, I want to broadcast that it changed. And then this is kind of the magic that connects it together. There's an Ember method called notify property changed. So this will loop through any props you define. And when it updates in Boabab, it will trigger that change to the Ember component to re-render.
It's really cool that you can hook on to like the internal property notification change stuff.
Like this stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can manually just say, hey, this thing changed,
yeah.
which is cool. Yeah, so that's kind of neat. Is so what that does is it pretty much lets you do something very similar to like the Cerebral decorator, right? Where you just say what state you want, and then the mixin takes care of setting that state here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can pass state down from components as well. But what's neat too is like, so this gets defined as a computed property by the mixin. So whenever it changes, it will update. But then you can wrap that computed property currently edited to-dos in another computed property. So like if you see like this is what gets defined, currently editing to-do IDs, which is just how I keep track of. You see over here. So I clicked to do to, and it adds that ID to this array.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how I keep track of which ones are currently editing. So, then this, we just have this property here that says is editing to render that edit input. But this uses an Ember computed property, which just says, get me the currently editing to-do IDs, which is a computed property defined here. And let me get the to-do that's passed in as a prop. And let me just check if this current to-do is included in that array.
Oh yeah, so includes is like the array includes? Is that ES?
Yep, that's just ES6.
Cool.
Yeah. And then, this is all Cerebral stuff, triggering signals, passing the data. Actions are, I was lazy and just threw everything in one big pile of junk. But one thing that's cool too, I guess I could show, is it hooks into the router too. So Ember has its own router where it has a dynamic segment on it. So if you look at, I think it has its own link to helper. So when you click one of these, it'll hook into the router. And so, I should update this, because now instead of doing get Cerebral, get signals, you can do
Oh, yeah.
And so now, since I injected Cerebral and the signals into routes, it's available here. So now I can say, when you use the router and you go to the index route, you can trigger this index routed signal.
Yeah.
And then what I can do here is the model hook and router gets past the params. So here I get the active filter. And then I trigger that signal. So you see here, now it's reloading.
How is it working out with the debugger? Is it working? It's just time travel that doesn't work?
Yeah, I didn't even try. I think I was scared.
I would be scared if it worked.
Yeah. So it works great, at least for how I use the debugger, which I don't do time traveling very much.
Yeah.
But
that's really great to know that the debugger works without the immutability.
Yeah.
My initial thoughts was that it was a requirement, but the way the way it just rebuilds the signals now, or reruns the signals, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Except for time traveling, of course.
Right.
But that's really awesome.
And then I get, one other thing, I guess, the implementation-wise, to point out that's key is that whenever a component is mounted, now we bind these properties and subscribe to the cursors. So a key thing to do is hook into this event as well, which is to unsubscribe from all that stuff, which I'm glad I figured that out.
So do you think it's ready for like Cerebral-View-Ember?
Well, let me stop sharing here. Yeah, I mean, I don't see. Obviously, it hasn't like really been tested. Like it's been it's been not tested in many ways. As in the code itself has no tests, and the only place it's really been used is in this to-do thing. But yeah, I think for this one though, it might have to go the other way, since Ember is, you know, even more of a framework than Cerebral is. That rather than kind of embedding Ember into Cerebral as like a view or something, kind of go the other way. So
yeah.
like if I could wrap up the stuff in the initializer, like, you know, where it takes care of like registering Cerebral and you know, doing all that stuff and injecting it into your components, and then, you know, just provide the mix in as a, you know, just import it and then use that, I think.
Yeah, so you're kind of like more imagining like a plugin for Ember rather than a plugin.
The other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Unless, like, I don't know, I just assumed that that would be, maybe I need to think more about how it could work the other way, injecting it into Cerebral. But yeah, I think probably first I would try to plug it into Ember.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of crazy because I felt so much frustration with Ember, and it seemed like two different worlds that would never meet. And then, like, with actually not too much work, like, you know, I can pretty much program the way that I want to and get all the stuff that I like about Cerebral, like, within this totally different stack, which is really cool. And I guess it shows the flexibility of Cerebral's approach of, like, you know, it can be its own standalone thing and have its own opinions, yet it's still flexible enough to include and be used in places that you didn't imagine.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing too. Like, I included it like as a little widget, a whole Cerebral application as just a little widget in an existing app of ours at work. Like, so it was just a navbar component that's shared among a couple of our apps, and I just did it as a proof of concept and implemented it in Cerebral. But it's totally hidden. Like, no one knows that. It's my little secret. Like, you just include it, and I wrapped it in a function where you pass it a selector, you know, and say render.
Yeah.
And then, but if you look in there in the debugger, it's like a full embedded Cerebral app, which is cool.
That's cool. Actually, I think I want I have a colleague. Well, he's been helping me on the startup thingy, and he's been using Cerebral with Electron. And it's actually a really cool project because he's a racing driver, and he's been working with these racing simulators, and he has built this application that extracts data from this racing simulator, and it's a lot of data. And he's presenting everything inside an Electron app, and everything's running on Cerebral. And what's kind of cool is the amount of data that is being shown there. So maybe I can make him demo it next time. That would be cool.
That's something that I noticed when I last night I was hacking a little bit on WebpackBin to try and get Vim mode in there, and it's like 80% works. I just can't seem to figure out like the other 20% of when it just stops working and breaks things. But I gave it another go. But one thing I noticed when hacking around with that is, like, on every key up or whatever, it's like you're linting on WebpackBin, which is, like, as far as I could tell, like, not even any throttling or like anything, which seems kind of crazy. And I was sort of surprised. I was like, does this actually work? Like, is this actually fast enough? But I didn't notice it when using it, so it must be, right?
Yeah, and I think actually, is it called the ACE editor? It's a different code editor. And I think that one lints in a worker, a web worker. is it called web worker? Well, worker. So and you can see it when you create like a new file, or maybe you have a JS file already loading the bin, and then you click that file, and then there's a lag there because it's firing up the linter. But that's also because I need, like, it's lazy loading a lot of stuff in WebpackBin, so that's also a reason why it has this lag. But linting is, I don't know. Yeah, in the next version you can turn it off at least.
Yeah,
So,
I guess, work on the trade-off between startup speed and like speed of everything else, like eager load versus lazy load.
yeah. And I don't know how much value the linting gives really. One thing is for beginners learning a new, like learning the language, it's very useful. But like if you just want to hack on some tool or something, it doesn't really matter that much. But yeah, we'll see where.
Yeah. I think it's such a cool project. That's why I keep trying to hack in Vim mode, because like that's what I use in real life. So like I'm finding myself hopping over to WebpackBin just to try stuff all the time, but
yeah,
my fingers want Vim things.
and it's actually kind of cool. It's there has been created 18,000 bins, and the project has only been running for under a month, I think. So there's activity there every day. So looking forward to implementing more stuff and maybe get some stories on people using it. You should see it's really funny, the YouTube comments on the. Have you read them? You should read them. It's a lot of funny comments there. Because it's a bit magical. Like how can that actually work? How can you load React and Cerebral and Angular 2 just clicking that button and so quickly? It's kind of cool. Oh well. Does anyone have anything more they want to share with the group?
Anybody switching to Ember? You guys all looked at that code and you're like,
Oh, but Ember is a really great project. It's like a company, it's a service, like a company giving a service, and they're spending a lot of time on it and driving the community forward. It's must be fun for those two guys. They've been working on it for a long time.
I think they have a side company too, like Tilda, I think is their company. But
so that would be really awesome with Cerebral. It's like maybe we will get like our first Cerebral consultant at some point. That would be really awesome. So,
that's you. You're the Cerebral consultant.
Yeah, yeah, that's true actually. But it will be good to get to 1.0 with like there's not that many users now, and like we have a really stable code base. We have lots of really good features, especially the debugger, and we have reference applications. So when 1.0 gets out, we will have a really good platform to like spread the word. So it will be exciting to see and how much adoption we get on it. So yeah.
Yeah, that was my other question too, is like how can we get more people using it? Because it seems to have like kind of been hovering around like 500 something, like stars for a while.
True.
I don't know how these things work.
I think the biggest problem is the landing site. It just doesn't give you the right information. Like, but maybe that's because, and we have never really tried to sell Cerebral either. So I think when the landing site has more references to actual applications and how you actually install the thing.
We should talk about that again too, because like having a Cerebral install thing.
Yeah, the one you thought of, that would be awesome.
Something like that, you know, or even taking the idea of like generating the structure for you a little bit further, kind of building off of the Atom plugin, you know, something like that, but from the command line. So you say fire up my basic project with, you know, my package JSON that I need, and
Yeah.
you know, my actions and signals and stuff like that could help people.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I hope to get most stuff done before the July weekend, so that it will just be fun stuff that we can just. I thought we could just have a list with stuff we need to fix, and then we just see how far we get, and then we just release it. So,
Do you have any sample projects on different backends than like JavaScript Express? Because I think that they are, at least my coworkers, when they come to like Webpack and all the configuration, they don't have the time, so they say like, maybe next project. So
yeah,
I'm trying to build. Actually, I'm rewriting a GWT application, a pretty large one in Cerebral. So I hope it lands. So that I think it's a lot of boilerplate. You have like good boilerplates for Express and JavaScript, but I think maybe we should make some Java and some PHP server side.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. It's like I don't like Bower, but a lot of people are using Bower, and everything's like hardcore ES6 syntax, which is still is in the phase of being adopted. So there are many factors that can throw people off, and I don't think it's the best idea to have Webpack, as you say, because it requires so much configuration, and it's too bad that people get scared off because of Webpack. And yeah,
I think Kotatsu helps.
Yeah, because it's running on Kotatsu now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I think it's just that main thing of like no config, like one command install, you know, that for some reason I've found it from my coworkers too. Like if there isn't that, like, you know, npm install cerebral CLI, cerebral new my cool app, enter. And if that doesn't like generate the files with your imports and like compile your assets and like boot up a server, if that doesn't happen, they're like, this is so, I have to wire up all this boilerplate, you know, like I think it's just me being in this community too long that I just don't care. You know, I'm just like, it's not that big of a deal. Like you write that import for the controller once over the entire lifetime of your project. Like it's not that big of a deal. but you know.
But yeah, and that's why I also think it's important that we like kind of feel happy about where the API or Cerebral itself is right now, so we can focus on that stuff, because we know we are inviting them into something good. So now we can focus on how to invite and kind of like make things easier to get into.
I could see that being a cool focus for the hack too.
Yeah,
is working on that stuff. Like let's make the kind of marketing, you know, the onboard, or just like the onboarding process, like as awesome as possible. Like to go from someone who is a web developer but doesn't know what this thing is, maybe has only read about Flux on Hacker News and is interested, but there's a huge gap between I heard that's cool and this is something I'm going to use, and like try and make Cerebral close the gap as much as possible.
Yeah, true. We could even have like, that would be fun to have like a video where because it's not just about the tool, it's about the people behind it as well, where we had like cut scenes from our hangouts and from the event, and And then at the end, everybody like thumbs up Cerebral.
Yeah.
Don't you want to hang out with us?
So you talked about the videos before, and actually I stumbled across one of your videos, and that is why I was trying out Cerebral. So I think it has a pretty good place, even though maybe the cerebraljs.com maybe should be refactored and tidied up, but I think the videos still they're showing it off, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At
I
least
got
it did
here
it for me.
to by the videos, so.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I also like that when I go into tools, if there's a video, that's the first thing I go to. So yeah.
I think what you need is an Egghead IO course.
Yeah. That would be fun.
Are you planning that? Egghead IO course? Are you planning a course on Egghead IO? Because
I don't know how it works. I thought you had to be like invited to make a course there.
Then maybe we should try to tweet on that. I don't know.
Sign a petition.
Like Alexei has helped me for a couple of days with like Git, and then I thought that maybe it's on Egghead IO, and it was. So it's pretty good actually.
Yeah.
The Redux has been a success, I think. So maybe the Cerebral will be as well. But it's a lot of work, of course.
Yeah, I feel really bad because there's this company called Pact Publishing. They asked me to do a course on React, but they're like this big publishing company, and there's so much bureaucracy, and I thought I could just wing it like I do with all my videos. Like, okay, we're going to make a React app, and yeah, just wing it. But they wanted a plan, and it just took too much time, so I just had to tell them I can do it because it takes a lot of time to make those videos. If you're going to do it the right way, of course.
Mm-hmm. One of the main issues at the moment for me is when my coworker kind of wants to set up Cerebral and whatever and add some stuff to it. They look at other apps. I've made like 7 apps now. We are a very fast-moving company. Our projects are like 3 weeks and then we move on. So when I tell them, okay, yeah, you can find that in that app, and then I'm like, oh wait, no, you can't because that is the old Cerebral syntax, and that no, you can't use that. And then there's so many changes.
Yeah.
So I'm very glad that is sorted out now.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well. Like, we should be happy where we are now. Like, we should focus on the other things of creating a tool or a framework because.
One thing for marketing, I don't know if you know Laravel. It is a PHP framework. It's a very, very popular PHP framework. And it doesn't really have a lot of JavaScript community behind it. But there's a lot of people who do want to try universal JavaScript on their applications, so they don't really know how to do that with PHP. And I've actually been investigating the V8.js mods for PHP quite a bit recently, which lets you run Cerebral just JavaScript, and you can run Universal React. So I might show this in a next Hangout, how that works, and also discuss how I fix the Cerebral in it. But if you put that in a nice README, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people will try that out because it's just not a common thing to combine PHP with JavaScript server-side rendering, I guess.
Yeah.
So you're right. My coworkers they work with Laravel, absolutely.
Okay.
And and then they've seen all the new things, but they don't have the time. And so I show them this PHP to JavaScript universal, but too much work. So a boilerplate maybe of that.
It's a lot of work. The main thing is the Docker image, or well, whatever you use. It's a lot of work to set up, but once it works, it works. So.
Yeah. And there's also been some discussions on how to, I guess that's a general discussion, how universal apps should work, like on the server side. Like the approach now with Cerebral is that you just inject the state into, at least with React, the controller is just some state, and you inject it, and out comes your your stringified app. But I've seen other approaches where you actually create some connection between the router. Even people have gone so far as when on the client you do like a request to the server will rather make a request to the database, so everything's like magically running. But at least for now, I think at least the easiest approach is to just inject the state into your application and then render it out as a string and pass it on.
So getting Cerebral to work is not that much of a difficulty, but just the universal stuff, it requires so much thinking. You need to keep the state in sync at all times. Your front-end routes need to be configured at the back end as well. So it's when you go that route, you need to be absolutely sure that you need it, and it just duplicates all the work you need.
Yeah, and it gets more complex the more complex your app gets, like in terms of data fetching and stuff. And like the typical application for universal apps is like where you consume text, like you want instant, like reading news articles and stuff like that. And those aren't really that complex. You usually have one entity you want to load and then push it out or render it out.
This is an application. It's more of a store kind of web page, website. So you have your faceting search, which comes through Solr engine. So you need to combine Solr with PHP with everything. And when you filter, it changes your segments in your routes, not just params, because query params. Because for SEO reasons, segments are still better and all that. SEO is it's a lot of pain, but SEO is the main reason I think we do it. SEO and that good feel that it instantly loads, of course.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool. Yeah, like even the Cerebral website has this. It just hit the URL and it's there. It's kind of cool. But even that implementation, which is quite simple, was a bit mind-bending to begin with. Especially when you get that indication from React that there's a difference from what you're trying to render on the client and on the server, and then okay, where do I start?
Yeah.
Oh, but I think we will be able to do a lot more of this kind of stuff when we hit 1.0, because then it's official. We are not going to discuss big changes to the API, and we can focus more on getting reference applications and building boilerplates and making the website good for new users. Yeah.
It's
Awesome.
good timing for me because I'm trying to pitch my work on using it for new projects going forward. So
maybe we could have a hangout on that. Because I talked to other people also, like talking about pitching it to colleagues, and what is like the elevator pitch for Cerebral, really. And I'm not a salesperson at all, so yeah, I don't know.
I think we covered a lot of the big ones, at least as I see them here. We should probably create an issue and list them out and kind of tackle them in priority order. But yeah, it's like the onboarding thing. And people want commitment that if they're going to spend time to learn this thing, that it's going to be around and going to be worth it. And like, I don't know, like we're different because we're sort of insiders, right? And we just play around with it like for the fun of it. But like other people who aren't insiders, it's like they want to know like what's the pattern, you know, like how do I get stuff done? Like they're not interested in the internals or like exploring stuff. So it's like keeping that in mind, like having answers for like, this is how you do stuff, this is how you get started, and like we're not going to mess you up by, if you choose us, we're not going to mess you up by changing stuff on you like crazy.
Yeah. And also like having a good reason, an example of why do you go to such lengths of creating these signals and actions when you just want to do one simple thing. And this is the problem like Redux and other libraries face as well, because it doesn't make any sense when you just want to change, just even with React on your input. Why do you move the value of your input into your state, like the component state, just to move it back into the input? It doesn't make any sense at all. But when it makes sense is when you suddenly change your state, changing the value of the input, and suddenly your input has changed its value. You didn't do it on the element, you did it on your state. And that is when people kind of like, oh, so I can change anything in my application without talking to the DOM at all. It's just like a reflection of my state. And I think a lot of people are still in this world where even Cycle.js has this DOM selecting API to listen to events and stuff. And yeah, with Cerebral, I'm really trying to, sometimes I even say that you don't even have to write your UI. You can build your application just using state and signals. And then you can have like, I don't know, a Nintendo controller or something connected, which triggers different signals. And then you don't need a UI to build your application. It's just there for output. But of course, we care about output, so yeah. No, but that's a really good ideas, and it's nice to like, yeah. I feel like we're like closing in on releasing something. It's like we did it. It's like it could crash so many times. It's like just when we moved from Gitter to Discord, I was, oh, is people going to join? Is this going to be the end of the project? But that's when it really started. That's when the really great discussion started.
That's kind of when it went nuts. Like that's when modules happened, right?
Yeah. And also like from the beginning, like all the effort that Alexei has done with the repos, it's just, I think that's
huge.
Yeah, it's huge, because I'm not that person at all. Like I could never do that kind of stuff because I don't have the motivation for it and I don't understand it and have the experience. So it was the right mix of people as well. And you cheerleading us all the way, Brian.
That's my role.
Yeah.
I'm a Cerebral evangelist. I'm doing it at work now too. No one can get me to shut up.
Oh, that's funny. No, but it was really amazing, like going down to the Reactive conference, and you coming all the way from Florida, and Garth, and it was, yeah, it was fun.
It's gonna happen again in Vienna.
Yeah.
Garth has a much shorter commute to it than I do.
Yeah. For a weekend, like from the States.
Yeah,
crazy.
why not? Come on. We're just humans.
Yeah. Oh. No, but I think we have to end this. There's taco time here in Trondheim. So I just want to say thanks for all the contributions, and that's also really fun to see. It's like all this stuff coming out of the project, and all the enthusiasm. It's really fun. So thanks a lot. It's really great. So I just want to wish you a great weekend, and we'll talk on Discord, and we'll do another hangout sooner than last time, at least. So have fun.
We got to get Delaney back too.
Yeah, just for fun.
Yeah, just for Just
Maybe
for
we can
party
hire him as a
reasons.
consultant on the Falcor to finish off the Falcor.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
All right, see you guys.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye.